In sports, we celebrate success. We celebrate winners. Carving your name in record books is a tall and daunting task, but if you manage to get to the top of the mountain, you will be showered with fame, glory, and praise. On the other hand, there are negative records for which you don't get celebrated, but you still get remembered. When you suck, you better suck like nobody has sucked before. I'm pretty sure nobody has said that phrase before, but it might as well have been the motto of the NBA teams that we're going to cover in this video. Here, we remember the 5 worst teams in NBA history. The 1997 to 1998 Denver Nuggets, 11-71. The Denver Nuggets were one of the most fun teams in the 1980s and early 1990s. With Alex English and Kiki Vandervega, 2 All-Stars who scored 20-plus points every night, they played great for years and were a perennial contender in the loaded Western Conference. When Fat Lever and Chris Jackson joined the team during the era of Coach Paul Westhead, who believed in a run-and-gun style of play, they played the most exciting basketball in the entire NBA. The game scores would often look something like 140 to 135. Denver's run-and-gun style maybe didn't produce a championship, but it was a fun and thrilling show for the fans every night. Then, in 1991, they drafted one of the best centers of his generation, Dikembe Mutombo, who was thought to be their franchise player until retirement. However, after several playoff appearances and early exits, Mutombo bolted from Denver for Atlanta, and the Nuggets lost their main star. Prior to the 1997 to 1998 season, Chris Jackson, now Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, left the team, as did Antonio McDyess and several other key pieces from those playoff teams. What was left was a group of young players who would struggle to win against some better college teams. They tied the then NBA all-time worst single-season losing streak at 23 and ranked 28th in offense and 29th in defense out of 30 teams in the league. After 40 games, the Nuggets had a 2-38 record and finished the season with 11 wins and 71 losses, nearly escaping the worst team of all time moniker, which at the time still belonged to the next team on this list. The 1992 to 1993 Dallas Mavericks, 11-71. There are a couple of different routes to having a historically bad season. GM Sam Hinkie and the Sixers popularized tanking in recent years, the process strategy where a team is deliberately awful for a few years, collects high draft picks, and eventually ends up with franchise players. While Hinkie's Sixers were bad deliberately, the 1992 to 1993 Dallas Mavericks were just out of luck. Their 11-71 record was a result of circumstances and an array of injuries to main players. A similar situation happened to the Golden State Warriors in 2019 to 2020, when they went from nearly winning the finals to having the worst record in the NBA the next season. The 1992 to 1993 Mavs played without Roy Tarpley, a talented center who averaged 20 points per game before he got suspended for 3 years due to cocaine abuse, a fairly common occurrence in the late 80s and early 90s NBA. Then, they lost their starting point guard, Fat Lever, due to a knee injury. Promising rookie Jim Jackson also missed time due to a contract dispute with the team. What was left wasn't enough to put together a winning basketball squad. For a long time, it looked like they would be the worst team ever, but they managed to win their last 2 games of the season to improve to 11-71, if anyone can call that an improvement. The next year wasn't much better. They won only 2 games more, which is why the early 90s Mavericks remain one of the worst teams ever. The 2015 to 2016 Philadelphia 76 ERs, 10-72. In the 2012 NBA playoffs, the Philadelphia 76 ERs played Game 7 in the conference semifinals against the Celtics and were on the cusp of challenging LeBron's Miami Heat in the next round. However, the Celtics advanced, and the Sixers front office decided that the group had reached its peak and needed to be rebuilt. Fan favorite Andre Iguodala went to Denver, and Philadelphia acquired Andrew Bynum in a 3-team deal with the Lakers. Bynum was considered the second-best center in the league at the time, behind Dwight Howard. Unfortunately, injuries kept Bynum sidelined for the entire 2012 to 2013 season, and the man who was supposed to be the next franchise cornerstone never played a minute in a Sixers uniform. General manager Sam Hinkie, mentioned earlier, decided to take a radical approach. He traded away all remaining assets from the playoff team for draft picks. Lots of draft picks. Hinkie was deliberately making the team worse in order to secure top draft choices. While tanking wasn't a new concept, Hinkie's approach was so blatantly obvious that he didn't even try to hide the fact that the goal was to be as bad as possible. The 2015 to 2016 team was an unproven mix of draft misses, Jahlil Okafor and Nerlens Noel, and weak rotation players. They were young, they were bad, and they didn't even want to be good. The 76ers started the season 0-18, setting an NBA record of 28 straight losses when combined with 10 losses from the previous season. With 3 separate losing streaks of 12 or more games, they finished 10-72, ranking last offensively and 26th defensively. However, Hinkie's plan did work to some extent. They secured the number 1 pick and selected Ben Simmons. While the process was flawed, arduous, and painful for Sixers fans, it eventually led to a team with multiple All-Stars, though they have yet to win a title. The 1972 to 1973 Philadelphia 76ers 9-73. For nearly 40 years, the 1972 to 1973 Sixers held the title of the worst NBA team ever. The team finished with a 9-73 record, and their season was doomed from the start. To make matters worse, they hired their coach through an ad in the Philadelphia Daily News. Roy Rubin, a small college coach at the time, answered the ad and got the job. However, he had very little influence over the players, and the team quickly spiraled into chaos. They lost their first 15 games and 38 of their first 41. Players gave up on the team early, abandoning team basketball altogether. "I wouldn't wish a full season like that on my worst enemy," said Mel Counts, a member of that Sixers squad. Their disastrous season is well documented in the book Perfectly Awful, The Philadelphia 76ers, Horrendous and Hilarious, 1972-73 season by Charlie Rosen. The 2011 to 2012 Charlotte Bobcats, 759, Michael Jordan is considered the greatest player of all time, but when it comes to owning a team, he's far from the top. Since taking over the Charlotte Bobcats, now Hornets, in 2010, his teams have been mostly mediocre, with only 2 playoff appearances and early exits. The 2011 to 2012 Bobcats, however, were the worst, literally. They won just 7 games, setting the record for the lowest winning percentage in NBA history at .106. They ranked dead last in offense and defense, and were historically bad across the board. Despite their horrendous season, they failed to land the number 1 pick in the lottery and missed out on Anthony Davis, instead drafting Michael Kidd-Gilchrist at No. 2. This further solidified Jordan's struggles as an executive. For the sake of Mike's competitive spirit, we hope the Hornets can eventually turn things around, because we know losing eats him alive inside.